the way, I finally finished God of War.
Oh, was it good? Good ending?
Yeah.
Are you satisfied with it?
I am very satisfied with it. In case for some reason we end up using this whole segment here for an open or anything like that.
Who knows?
There is. I get the feeling Santa Monica is teeing us up for spin-offs. Which, if they just keep it relegated to what they've teed up, would be okay. I also think they might also be potentially teeing us up for one of those good old-fashioned Sony $40 too big for a DLC, so we're going to make it a standalone experience.
Fun.
But, nice conclusion. Little disappointed with the last boss fight. Thought it was going to be a little bit tougher than it was. But since I finished that, I was like, okay, so I have two things on the chopping block that I had to start Sonic Frontiers, and we'll get to that in a second.
I was going to say, you had to start that. If you said anything else, I would have been upset.
Well, the other thing, I was like, well, it's just a demo and I haven't tried it yet. So I booted
up Forspoken. Okay.
That's fair. 5 minutes is about all I lasted.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't like it?
So I think
chin scratcher.
I think it might be because of the fact that A, it's a demo.
Okay.
And B, they're going. I think there's going to be a performance mode, which I hope there's going to be a performance mode, because it looked amazing, but the frame rate tanked so hard.
There it is.
Because of the visuals.
There it is.
I just could not. I couldn't get over it because everything was all like chonky. It wasn't even a 30. It wasn't even a 30 frame. I want to say it probably ran at about 25-ish frames. It looked very clompy and chonky whenever you did everything. I didn't even get a chance. It's kind of interesting to how they set up the use of the magic and everything. It's all equipped, but you use your left side, basically your left side of your triggers and your right side of your triggers to do based on like your hands. So it's not. It's also kind of felt like a third-person shooter.
Really?
More so than anything else. Now, I think that's primarily because of the spells that it just had have at the very beginning there. But, yeah, like the traversal was not fun because everything was so jarring. And I literally was like, I can't even attempt to try to play this. So I think it's one of those, I got to wait for the full release. And it's going to be one of those deals to where I may end up having to wait for reviews / it to go on sale before I actually try it because of my bad experience with the demo.
Hey, this is something I was saying. This is what I was warning. This is what I was scared about. It looks too pretty to be good.
It's I think it may be because they were going for style over substance, but the fact that it was a demo, I kind of gave it a little bit of leeway. I didn't say straight up and down, no, there's no way I'm touching this, but I also decided now is probably the time for me to start Sonic Frontiers.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. You, dear listener, have chosen for whatever reason to listen to another Horrible Gaming Podcast. But I am not alone. Nor am I mostly never alone. With me is
Neil, a.k.a. A Tiny Wizard.
A name chosen by him, which we're going to discuss later. We're going to discuss that later. But before we get into that, hint, hint, Neil knows exactly what I'm talking about. We got to thank some people who have made this possible. First of all, behind our ugly mugs, you're seeing a custom graphic. That custom graphic was supplied by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. And then, of course, the theme song for this show and all shows here at Old Man Gaming are supplied by the man who makes the music, my brother, Nick Van Slyters. Thank him for that. We'll be right back with fan interaction.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our first segment, our most important segment, fan interaction. But before we get into fan interaction, I want to specially plug something that we're going to end up plugging at the end of the show. My friend Neil here was on a episode of the Dope Nerds podcast. You guys can check that out anywhere that podcasts can be gotten, and it's Dope Nerds with a Z at the end. But Neil was very, very nice to me for the most part, with the exception of the fact that he accused me of forcing him to use a tiny wizard when I have made multiple offers to phase out the tiny wizard in it. And the only reason we use it is not because of me. I want to explain this to everybody out there. And Dope Nerds, if you are for some reason listening, which I don't think you are, but if you are, I want to explain right now. It was not his gamer tag. He would post on YouTube for the show when I was with my original co-host, and his name was a Tiny Wizard. He had been on a couple of guest spots, and we had referred to him as a Tiny Wizard because of his screen name on YouTube. And when he decided to be a co-host, I asked him straight up what he wanted to be called, and he said, a Tiny Wizard, everybody's used to it. It was not my choice. It has not once been my choice. You said, and I quote, I rewound it and listened to it twice so that I could quote this. You said, and I quote, oh, I have to add the AKA a Tiny Wizard, because one time I told my co-host, the guy who runs everything, my gamer tag, and he said I had to use that for the rest of all time. I have never said that. Never.
You never said it directly, but I mean,
I never said it ever. Ever. I even offered twice on two different occasions to phase it out.
It's right. Weird.
Hey.
If I start next week's episode and I say, and with me is Neil. It's
okay.
Weird, right?
I just want to make it is weird. I don't disagree with the fact that it's weird. I'm saying I am not forcing you to continue to use it, which is what you made it sound like. I will say also, sir, on a much more earnest note, although that was very earnest. I've never forced this motherfucker to use his name. Much more earnest note. Dude, you did go out of your way to point out how little you do on the podcast. Like, you do plenty. I can't do the podcast without you. I can't. So, no. You don't have to just, I'm like, man, he's just sitting there kicking the shit out of himself on a different podcast. Like,
I mean, objectively, all I really do is show up and talk. I don't do any of the editing. I don't, honestly, that's why I spaced on all the plugs at the end too, because I can never remember all the plugs. I'm bad at that.
You are really bad at that. I'll say that.
The most work that I do is do what I normally do throughout the course of the week and scroll through my Google News. And whenever an interesting game one comes up, I go, huh, and copy it onto a notepad.
I mean, that's still work. I don't think, like, this podcast would not be quite the same without you, sir. So I think that you could be a slightly less self-deprecating than you can. And again, I never forced you to use a Tiny Wizard. Not once in the entire history of our relationship have I forced you to use that as your nomenclature.
It's the opposite of a compliment sandwich. It's a criticism sandwich.
Still,
you know how they tell you to hey, you're really good at this thing, but we really wish you would improve this. But hey, you're really good at this thing. It's like having a sandwich. It's a double down of sandwiches.
I also have to call out that historian guy. I cannot remember his name, but the historian was wrong, like wholly wrong on one of his facts, and it made me actually kind of yell at my podcast for a second.
What?
Totally wrong. Yeah. The historian, when you guys went into it, first of all, it's a great episode of Dope Nerds. I don't want to knock these guys because I've never met them, but I am going to knock one of them. But it's in jest. But he went. You guys were talking about something, and he brought up DC versus Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And his big reason why it sucked, which it did suck, it was a bad game, but it wasn't. His big reason was that it sucked. He's like, the Mortal Kombat guys have no business being in the ring with Superman. Superman would destroy them all instantaneously. That's what he said, right? Mm-hmm. You remember that part, right?
I do believe, yeah.
It's
been over a month at this point, but
I'm laying down the challenge. He can come on the show. We can fight about this. But Superman has 3 weaknesses, not just 2, 3. Kryptonite, Red Sun, and magic. Motherfucker, the green balls of flame that the Shaolins are shooting, that ain't science. It ain't science. It's magic, baby. He would take damage from Scorpion's stabber because Scorpion is a being of pure magic. Any one of those Mortal Kombat people who could shoot, use, or channel magic or are made of magic would deal just as much damage to Superman as anybody out there. This is true facts, baby.
Wow.
True facts.
Well, I know that we are very much wrong about a lot of things on this podcast, but I mean, we'll see about getting we'll see about getting those guys on here, and then you guys can hash it out. If you
can hash it out, I can hash it out. He has problems with magic. That's why Shazam can fuck his ass up, because Shazam's magic. Okay, but that's all in fun. It was a great show. I think you guys should all go check it out. They did each of their games that they want to come back, that they want to be remade, which was a little painful for me to listen to because I was just sitting there like, oh, I got a bunch. And they'd all be mad about them.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was the thing, like how everything worked out with that episode with timing and everything like that. The schedules just really didn't super mesh.
Yeah, I get it.
That's why I was the only one who was able to go on there.
Yeah. No, that's fine. You don't have to explain why I wasn't on. It's no big deal.
I'm not explaining to you.
You don't have to explain to them. You can be on shows without me. We are not attached at the hip. We are not married.
It's for the people. What if somebody comes up with some like crazy ass conspiracy, like, oh, he's tried out on other shows. Oh.
You think one of our 23 listeners,
20 regular listeners,
is going to be like, shit, we're going to lose one of our non-paid podcast co-hosts.
It's a YouTube scandal of the century.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. All right. Well, that was a lot of not fans reaction, but that's because you guys didn't actually comment about a lot, and that's totally okay. I get busy. It's fine. I'm not upset about that, but I got to read the comics that I did get. They were both from Backdraft, and he said, woo, because he loves the Ric Flair woos. And then he said, because I at one point said, okay.
Oh.
Pressing buttons here. And then I had said at one point that I am the one who remembers when it comes to like cyberpunk, and I ended up naming the episode that because I like the sound of it so much. And Backdraft didn't miss a beat. He said Pepperidge Farms remembers. To which, you know what I said? I said, just call me Pepperidge Farms, motherfucker. New gamer tag right there. I may change my gamer tag to Pepperidge Farms. I think that would be amazing. Just Pepperidge Farms is a gamer tag. You've been shot by Pepperidge Farms.
I know. That's the whole reason why I even came up with the tiny wizard.
I remember you told me that. It was just like, I think it's funny when somebody says, you got sniped by a tiny wizard.
Yeah.
It's just totally fine. I liked your original gamer tag. It just rolled off the tongue.
The Chicken of Destiny?
No. Naspa Misleen.
Oh, yeah.
It was his name backwards, guys. Yeah, Naspa Misleen.
Kind of figured, though, that might have been a bad idea for, like, personal information safety-wise.
Right, that's true.
Like, at that point in time, I had, like, Xbox let you have like a bio and like, oh, here's the city that I live in.
Yeah.
Here's my name, but backwards. Nobody can figure that out.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that's Fantraction. That's it. That's all we got this week. So we can get right into the terribleness that is the news. Yeah.
The shit show?
Gaming. You know what sucks before we get into it? And I'm just going to say it. I have three basic nerd things that fuel me on the front of entertainment. I've always had them. There's wrestling. There's tabletop role-playing games. And there's video games. Those are my three things. They fuel me on all things. Video games are burning. Anybody who listening to this is going to find out why. I mean, or has found out why if you've listened to any other previous episode. Or just, been online for any period of time and searched video games. Tabletop role-playing games is burning because of the OGL. And then
worse.
And then wrestling, WWE got hostile taken over by Rapey McRaperson, Vince McMahon, who is now trying to sell the entire company to Saudi Arabia. So all my things are burning right now. All of them. They're just trash fires. It's a bummer, man. It's a super bummer. But we're going to get into one of those bummers next. We indeed, motherfucker. We indeed.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Brings us to a talking point, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you know this, and I don't know which one of us really started it. I feel like it's been a joint theory that we have been creating, like we're both under the tinfoil hat for some time, that a AAA gaming crash is on the horizon, and that the signs are evident. Not because they don't make money, because we all know the gaming industry makes more money than TV, movies, and music combined. But overreach, mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, this has caused some serious problems. And now the industry in this last week has suffered massive layoffs, which is very confusing, especially the one we're going to talk about, because we're going to center in on Microsoft on this thing, because Microsoft has laid off 10,000 employees across their various studios. That includes Bethesda and all of their other private studios, which has also led to some 343 debacles with Halo, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before we get into that, I have a big tinfoil hat about this. I don't want to use it quite yet. I think maybe Neil's probably going to be under that hat with me as well. But if I'm right, they're real shady evil fucks. But what are we doing? Because we just dropped $70 billion to buy Activision. We refuse to back out of that deal. But yet we're going to lay off 10,000 actual hard working class people in order to try and push through the buyout of Call of Duty. I have real problems with this. You then add in the fact that Ubisoft has laid people off. Ubisoft has also canceled a bunch of games and is restructuring. You look at Riot, who is also laying off a bunch of people. The AAA industry, and then you look at the amount of games that they've actually released in the last 2 years. I'd say it's under 10. Not including Nintendo. If you took Nintendo out of the equation, I'd say it's under 10. So, what's happening? What's going on? And what do we think is happening? Neil, before I get my tinfoil hat on and I start saying some crazy shit, I'd love you just to give your thoughts on the overview of what's going on.
And boy, isn't that just the way it goes.
Yeah. It's hard for me not to just say it in my overview, to be honest.
Yeah. I do wonder if you are about to say what I think you're about to say.
I think I might be. I told my wife it. After I explained the situation, and she was like, "That's diabolical, but you could be right." And I was like, "If you think I could be right, I maybe we're all in trouble." The most logical person I know thinks I might be correct about something. We might all be in trouble.
Yeah, so it is a very interesting sort of situation, especially, given the fact, like you said, these layoffs have hit Bethesda. There's been some at 343, and then like Marty Stratton himself is also leaving over at 343, one of like the main pioneers of this more recent Halo universe.
Pioneer of shit.
I use the term by its definition.
I see what you're saying. I know. I know you're no fan.
But that's the thing is we have overall, when you take a step back and look, now it's not just the gaming division, of course. It's been some of their other actual like tech administrative jobs, everything. But we're literally just peeling out the gaming part of all of this, of the layoffs. But when you look at it, there's so many projects that have been in development for so long now that Microsoft has got this reputation now of like, okay, you guys have a box and you guys have a service, but you're not really releasing games. Where are the games? Where are the games? Well, Starfield is something that's supposed to be on its way. Well, surprise, they laid off a bunch of people at Bethesda. Same goes with, Elder Scrolls 6 is somewhere in that mix. Bethesda doesn't necessarily mean just id either. It could be Arcane. It could be anywhere else. 343, like we'd mentioned, the layoffs there. Any sort of development for the future of Halo Infinite's going to be kind of dicey. And what that even looks like, but we'll get into that there whenever we address that part of everything. It's really a question of why exactly it's happening. We've had a lot of other tech companies been laying people off. But I think I'm going to pass it over to you because I get the feeling I think I might know where your tinfoil hat is going to land.
All right, let me get it out of the tinfoil hat case. I think I need to actually make a tinfoil hat.
So I can
just put it on now that we've got a visual component. Okay.
Just do it, yeah.
Okay, so there's two different things that could be happening in my apparent mind as far as this. First of all, like I said, they're not making any games for us to buy. They haven't really produced any AAA contenders in a while. And when they do, they're subpar and whatever. But honestly, aside from when they do them being subpar, there aren't that many coming out. We had a drought last year. We had a drought the year before that. But these companies spend hundreds of billions of dollars. However, my tinfoil hat relates specifically to Microsoft's layoffs, though. Specifically to Microsoft's layoffs. And that is, Microsoft right now is fighting a battle in the FTC. They are trying to make themselves look real weak. They're trying to make themselves look really weak in the eyes of the FTC so that they can say, okay, the Blizzard Activision thing isn't them buying a monopoly or violating antitrust. It's them trying to save their business. How better to do that than to lay off 10,000 people? Because personally, I don't feel like Microsoft has a money problem. Maybe Xbox doesn't make as much money, which I think is bullshit. We've seen how much Game Pass makes. But you're telling me you can dip your hands into Daddy Microsoft's pockets to buy Activision, but you can't dip your hands into Daddy Microsoft's pockets to pay your fucking employees? What they're doing is they're letting these 10,000 slip away so that they can look way weaker to the FTC so that they can get this through.
I kind of, like I mentioned, I figured that's where you were going to go with it.
Tinfoil hat is firmly on my head right now.
I don't think that's a part of it.
You beautiful, innocent motherfucker.
I don't think it's a part of it because of the other tech layoffs. I think if it was accompanied by some sort of actual announcement of like oh, we're actually not doing super great, like fiscal inability, stuff like that. Like if an email had gone out or a release would have gone out somewhere similar to Ujumo's, it's the developer's fault, which is its own separate.
That's you're ruining one of my odds and ends here.
We'll get there. But Yeah, if it was accompanied by something like that, I think I would lean more in the line with
Okay.
that. But I mean, we've
Okay.
had so many other tech company layoffs in the past 2 weeks. I don't think that it is for this reason exactly. I think it may
I
be.
counterpoint that?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you're in the FTC battle, right? And you're in this bad situation. And then everybody else starts laying off people because they're not making any money. You can't not lay people off. You can't not lay people off. If the entire industry is laying people off, you have to lay people off or you will look like the strongest company out there. Like, either way, they could very easily be just doing this to make themselves look weaker.
I can see your point. I can definitely see your point, and that's kind of what I was going to get to. Is like, it's one way or another, it can be seen as such. I think it may be them more so following the trends of other tech companies. I don't know. Maybe tech knows something that we don't know. Maybe like they have access to other economic data that we have. But I think it's one of those things to where they're kind of killing two birds with one stone. I don't think that was the intended purpose, but I do think that I think
you are a wonderful person who still believes in humanity. That's what I think.
I think that idea, somebody spoke those words somewhere.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think. Somebody somewhere spoke those words as not necessarily like the main reason why, but perhaps like, oh, well, on the bright side, we look a little weaker now for the FTC thing. I think that was something somewhere at least one or two people had uttered.
I have a problem. I have a problem believing that Microsoft does not have the money to pay these people. I just have a problem believing that the largest tech company on the planet does not have enough money to pay these 10,000 people. Like, I just have a problem believing that there isn't another reason here. Especially since, even if you're just saying, well, it's Xbox, Xbox is separate from Microsoft, whatever. First of all, Xbox is not separate from Microsoft. There is no possible fucking way $70 billion came for the Activision deal just from Xbox Game Studios. And if it did, they've got enough to pay their 10,000 employees. The other thing is, we've seen, well, we haven't seen the exact amount, but we have seen kind of how much Game Pass makes people. They kind of showed us that last year. There is no fucking reason that they should be laying off these 10,000 people. I just don't believe that company does not have enough to pay them. Now, at the same time, WWE used to do this thing. I know this is kind of a weird comparison, but WWE used to do this thing is every year, right around this time, they would lay a bunch of people off for budget cuts. That's what they would do. They would usually lay off like 10 to 25 wrestlers, which is a lot of wrestlers. Obviously, it's nowhere near 10,000 workers, but they would. And then they would lay off a bunch of behind-the-scenes people and all that. They would do this like every year. Every year they do it. Like clockwork. People would just be afraid of it. There's no weird thing about that in the industry. It was just something WWE did that was terrible. And WWE makes buco money. The idea that WWE does not make a ton of money is insane. And people would be like, you have enough to pay them. And WWE would just say budget cuts. But we all knew that WWE is just trying to increase the amount of money they're making, basically. And somewhere there's a cost effect where they're like, they're not going to make us as much as they would not working for us, basically. That being said, that could be something that Microsoft's doing, where they're just like, hey, man, these 10,000 people, they're kind of useless to us, so we're going to trim the fat, so to speak. That still, to me, will have an adverse effect overall, because you want to create jobs. Like, the whole idea is to create jobs, to stabilize the market, to blah, 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 blah. Like, if you don't do that shit, you're going to look like an evil company. Plus, you have the money to pay them. You have the money to pay them. Like, this is the evilest shit in my opinion, that there is. You're basically laying people off so that the people who make untold amounts of money can make more. There's just I do not believe any part of my body. I do not believe anywhere that Microsoft and Xbox Game Studios just don't have the money to pay these people anymore.
I do wonder, too, if it is them making a consideration for the fact that they're about to assume an entire other workforce. Like, if this Activision Blizzard deal goes through, they're going to have a whole lot more mouths to feed. Now, granted, they're still going to have all the Activision Blizzard money and everything like that flowing in too, so that's a separate argument to make as to why, you know, maybe they do still need the people and they still can pay for it. I just one way or another, it's everything that Microsoft does at this point, be it intentional or unintentional, is always going to point back to this deal right now, because it is such a huge thing that, like, even like non-gaming companies are starting to get involved. Like Apple and Google have said, hey, we don't like this either, you know, for whatever dog they have in this fight.
Yep.
Because it's not like there's a Call of Duty well, I think there is actually a mobile version of Warzone.
There is.
But I don't think it like super makes that much of a difference to them in the end. It's just, you know, somebody else is in charge of the money that they make.
Well, and it's continued because the EU has challenged the sale now. Like
yes,
that was one of my odds and ends before we had decided on our talking point. But the EU has straight up been like, we don't think this is legal. We've got to look more in depth at it. We're kind of challenging the sale as well. So you have more than just like, it's more than just PlayStation whining. This is not a good deal, in my opinion. It definitely goes against antitrust laws, but I'm not a lawyer. I can't make that call. But all I know is I look at the scope of things, and they would own too much. But it comes back to what you're saying. All of this comes back to how do we get this deal through for them? And it just makes me very nervous because they have been of a single mind for the last 2 years. And that is this insane purchasing spree that they have been on, that basically we're going to own everything. And it just makes me wonder what lengths they would go to make that happen. Like, 10,000 workers is nothing to them at this point. They've got a whole workforce coming in, just like you said. They've got a whole, like, tons of studios already. 10,000 workers makes us look weaker. Let's get rid of them. I don't know. I don't know for certain, but I don't believe that Microsoft is like, we don't have enough money, you know?
Yeah. And then as all of this is going on, I guess we can kind of funnel over to the second part of this. So one of the big areas that was cut was from 343. Now, since the cut from 343 happened, it seems as they have their next season of content is going to be in its standard active development, but they're going to be scaling way back Halo Infinite's development for their single player and multiplayer stuff from what they had initially planned / announced.
Nobody's playing it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's that as well. But, I mean, on top of all that, then multiple rumors started flying all over the place about 343 being removed from like the main studio for developing Halo. Jason Schreier even is one of the ones that had reported on that, and
Schreier's not usually wrong about shit.
Yeah, he's normally pretty active, or accurate rather. So he's typically pretty accurate about that stuff. And then 343 has since come out and said, like, oh, here, now, and in the future, we're always going to be the developers of Halo. But if you look in what the actual announcement was, or the reporting that Schreier did, said that 343 is being taken off as the leading studio for Halo. So I think that could have been their way of speaking around it, saying, oh yeah, absolutely, we're still going to develop Halo. What are you guys talking about? I mean, we're 343. The name of our company is based off of Guilty Spark. Like, come on, guys. But they're taking more of a back seat. And I don't know necessarily if it's
right
directly.
Because like they very clearly they very clearly posted that response as like no, everything's cool, but their response is also very carefully to not actually say because the original story is just like you said, and I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you brought it up, because the original story, as the one you sent me that I read, basically it never said that they weren't going to be in charge of Halo. It said that they were no longer going to be the lead designers on Halo. They would oversee third parties designing Halo from that point on. And their response was like, hey, Halo always comes from us. Okay.
Yeah.
But Jason Schreier never said Halo wasn't coming from you. He said that like somebody else was making the games that you were going to publish. That's what he said. So, yeah, who's right on that? I got some things to say on this, though. I got some rants to go on here. And I've done this rant before, so I'm prepared to do it again. 343. Let's look at 343 as a company, everybody. 343 was designed, inceptioned, put together, created for one task. Literally one task. They have not made any other games than Halo games. They make Halo. That's it. That is all they were doing. When Bungie decided to walk away from Xbox, okay, Xbox created a studio for the express purpose of making Halo games. That's what 343 does. It's in the name, just like you said. They're named after it. That's all 343 is supposed to do. So, let's look at what 343 has accomplished in the amount of time that they've had Halo. They redid Reach in a way that a lot of people don't like. They then made Halo 5. That sucks. They then made Halo Infinite. That sucks. They spent 3 years making an engine that kind of sucks. And then what else did they do? Halo Wars. Okay, you got that right, I guess. Maybe you guys should just make real-time strategy games. I don't know, but you definitely didn't do your job right. The idea that 343 should be allowed to continue to make Halo games is insane. And I've said that before on the podcast. I think 343 is trying to do something they can't do because Bungie did it. And Bungie did it well. And they're not bringing anything else to the table. They're now trying to keep basically a dead horse alive by beating it. And it's just not working. 343 does not do their job right. Again, I'm sure there are a lot of developers there who work really hard to try and bring us good products. I'm not trying to insult those developers, the individual workers. I don't want to insult the individual worker, guys. You guys, I know you're all trying to do your job, but your company sucks. It sucks. It mismanages your assets and it mismanages what you do. Halo Infinite was a fucking joke, in my opinion, and I'm not against saying it. Its release was a fucking joke. Its multiplayer afterwards was a fucking joke and continues to be a fucking joke. Its single player was alright, but still kind of a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. And Halo 5 was a fucking joke. It had an okay multiplayer that kept it alive, but the story was a fucking joke. This has all been a fucking joke, and the idea that 343 should even be allowed, I don't think we should be discussing, the surprise on our faces that 343 is getting it taken away from. I'm surprised every day they still have it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just my personal opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I mean, even as a longtime Halo fan, there's no way to get around the fact that Infinite's entire process has not been super stellar. I mean, they were basically pulling a Cyberpunk with building a game around an engine that was being built at the same time. Yep. Granted, it wasn't as buggy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's mismanaged the whole process.
Yeah.
Halo Infinite came out. It wasn't what they wanted it to be. They know that it's not what they wanted it to be. A lot of features weren't implemented or weren't able to be implemented, or in some instances, in regards to the split screen co-op, were possible, but somewhere along the line, somebody, be it 343 higher up in Microsoft, said, well, no, don't do that. Don't put that local split screen in there, one way or another. They conked that out, split everything up into multiple little chunks, turned the multiplayer into effectively a free-to-play hellscape that is a shadow of the former multiplayer's self. And have effectively just run it into the ground. I mean, they tried to keep everything as it was in the past, still catering to an audience that, while was still there, has changed over the years. And things like Call of Duty and other games out there have modernized as time's gone on. Halo's not done that. And somewhere along the lines of everything, you have to either consider if it was 343 or if it was the higher ups at Microsoft. And I guarantee you, one way or another, it's going to come back to 343, which is why these reports even came out in the first place. I don't think anybody is surprised that if, however this all shakes out, who is right in the situation and everything, because now we're all confused as to where Halo is going to lie. And that's the thing. Make no mistake, Halo is going to lie somewhere at this point. They're going to continue with like the multiplayer. The single player campaign isn't going to get any more development expansion. That whole shit that they gave us about it's called Infinite because it's never going to end. We're going to update it, this, that, and the other.
Bullshit.
That's done. That's gone. Don't even think of that as a thing. I still don't hate the game, but I know it's nowhere near what it would have, could have, should have been.
Well, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I was just going to say, and at the end of all of this, I believe they had even said too, like as a part of these reports, the Jason Schreier's like, Halo's probably going to be on a hiatus for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like for an extended, like 8 to 10 year hiatus.
Yeah.
To where they have to just regroup and figure out what it is that they're going to do with the IP, or just completely reboot it.
Well, that would be dumb. But look, I want to point something out too. You said you made the comparison between Halo Infinite and Cyberpunk, basically saying, there's a lot of comparisons to be made. But one of the things you said was it wasn't as buggy as Cyberpunk. I want to say this. I've ranted about the bugs in Cyberpunk. I'm not going to say I didn't. However, the bugs were not the problem that I have with Cyberpunk, as I said last week. The problem that I have with Cyberpunk is the exact same problem I have with Halo, and that is we as a people, as a group of consumers, were lied to for many years before this game came out, and now we continue to be lied to post-content. That's my problem with both those games. Cyberpunk does not do still to this day, half of the things that it said it was going to do. And Halo does even less. Halo Infinite, my ass. Halo 6.5 months, more like. They've canceled the split screen they promised, just like you said. The multiplayer is a train wreck. There's no single player upgrades going to be done to it, which the whole point of this was that this was going to be come out and it was going to be done. We were just going to have to buy this game and then just keep getting DLC for it for the rest of our lives. Not even happening anymore. They haven't done Forge yet, right? There's still no Forge in it, if I recall correctly.
I believe Forge is out.
Oh, is it out? Good for them.
Forge
we only got that, 2 years after we were supposed to get it? They released that game to us in chunks, in bullshit ways. Halo Infinite did everything exactly like Cyberpunk. They had a huge long development. They delayed a bunch of fucking times. They lied to you the entire time they were developing it. And then afterwards, they didn't apologize to you at all. Honestly, as much as I hate to say this, I would say that Microsoft has done less to make it right with you than CD Projekt Red have. And I hate CD Projekt Red. So, that's a big thing for me to say. I also want to say, on your other point, the nostalgia point, the fact that they haven't like innovated their shooting in any way, shape, or form, or just their mechanics, I agree with that. Not only have they not innovative in that way, instead they've decided to handpick literally the worst qualities from everything else, such as the like loot boxes, well, not loot boxes, but you know what I mean, like weird upgrade systems and premium play and microtransactions out the yin yang butthole. Like, that's what they've decided to add to their game. But the core Halo experience is Halo 2. Like, I don't like, well, it's not even as good as Halo 2 in my opinion. You still can't dual wield. Like, I think that like that in itself is insane to me. 343 is completely out of touch with what a normal Halo fan, or hell, they're out of touch with what normal first-person shooter fans like. Yeah. Like just for starters, they don't know what normal first-person shooter people want, and that is troubled. I think there's something else I kind of want to mention on this, if you don't mind moving off Halo for a second. I mean, kind of to wrap this up, with all the other layoffs, I mean, regardless of whether or not I think Microsoft's layoffs are legitimate, with all the other layoffs going on, like, are we actually transitioning into a AAA game industry crash right now? Like, are we right? Are we right? Are you and I, the disaster movie guys, are we Dennis Quaid right now? Like, is this really what's happening? Because usually when I say stuff like that, I'm just a crazy old man screaming into the internet. But I'm starting to kind of feel like we're kind of right on this one. Shit, for the AAA companies, it's just like a house on fire.
Yeah, it's not the day after tomorrow. It's the year after next. Because... like,
locked and loaded pun on that one. Boom! Hammered it home.
So, like... think about it like this, like you'd mentioned. Let's zoom out now.
Right.
Microsoft has laid off 10,000 employees.
Right.
While they are in the midst of trying to acquire Activision Blizzard, because Activision Blizzard has been having some hard times lately. If the deal doesn't go through, poor old Mr. Bobby C, or K rather, I guess, Bobby Kotick, it isn't going to have anywhere to go because he's thinking he's getting his golden parachute. He's still going to get one if he leaves, I'm sure. So then Activision Blizzard's going to be in absolute turmoil because I feel like they were relying on this acquisition. So Microsoft then has already put up all this time and effort, resources, and have a plan on acquiring Activision Blizzard. So their entire roadmap gets upended because they aren't able to get this company and do like they're supposed to. And then we have over here Ubisoft, who's not really had any major releases in a hot minute and nothing really on the horizon, and is just overall bad, canceling stuff left and right. And I keep alluding to it, but we'll get to it in the odds and ends. Yves Guillemot doesn't know what the fuck he's doing and saying some stupid shit on top of that. Sony is Sonying. it's the best way that I can,
they're making a new console. They just made it available to buy the old one, and they're making a new one.
Yeah. We'll get into that in odds and ends too, because that's something else too. Stupid decisions all around, and then they bought Bungie, which there's got to be something that they're getting for that. They put something up for it. They have to get something in return. I don't think an investment is going to be worth enough to, for the whole of Bungie that they're going to get that return on investment. But I could be completely wrong.
I'm still very confused by the Bungie sale. I kind of felt like, while I didn't know if like Matter was going to be the thing, like Phil had said, I still kind of felt like they had to have another game in the works for that to be worth it. We haven't heard. It's been silent.
For Destiny.
Yeah, but it's been silent. Like I don't know. It's very confusing.
But like you'd said, like we've got multiple major companies now who are, I wouldn't say necessarily straight up and down on the ropes, but they've taken a couple good hits. And at the rate that things are going, and let's face it, just our general overall world economy right now, I think we are headed towards another crashy sort of situation. It's not going to be this year. It's probably not going to be next year. I think maybe literally the year after next is when we might really start to be like, hey,
might be good. It honestly might be good. I hate to say that, but like the AA and single A studios are absolutely killing it right now. I tell you what, I'm still a gamer. I'm still consuming games, but I haven't bought a AAA game since Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Like, I haven't. Like, I've only played like AA and single A games, and honestly, my life is better for it. You know, I think that like this is, I don't know, we're in a weird situation with this. I feel like the other thing is too, they spend so much money on these games, but they don't release them. We don't have any release dates for any of the big, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, look at Xbox. I mean, maybe we'll get some next week, this developer thing, but we still don't have any release dates for the 14 games that they have in development. How is that possible? Like, I think that, like, I don't know.
And not to cut you off there, but like that, even that thing next week, we know we're going to get some Redfall stuff, but they've explicitly said no Starfield, straight up and down. Starfield will not be there. No Starfield at all. Its own thing is coming at a later date. Don't even expect it. Don't even think about it. Don't anything with it. So, like, we're at that point now where, like, even like announcements for stuff that used to be like, come on, kids, let's get on the hype train. Is they're right out of the gate, right up front saying, hey, this thing you want that you know it's not going to be here. Don't even worry about it. Don't think it's going to be there. We don't want you to be mad at us, so we're just telling you now. Like, I think that's they're all these companies are starting to get into panic mode with all of this sort of stuff. Microsoft isn't the only one doing it.
The other thing is too, I think on the whole, the consumer base is actually slowly starting to get smarter on this. Like, which is, I mean, again, it's a slow process. I'm sure they're making a lot on pre-sales and stuff, but the amount of articles I've seen on how Starfield is fucking up or how Starfield isn't looking good has definitely dramatically increased in the last 6 months. And I think that's because it's reaching that cyberpunk level, and instead of the consumer base just like continuing down the road of like hype train, they're kind of going, wait a second, what's wrong with this? And I like, we've seen this too many times in the last few years. Is this going to be another one of these? And so we're actually slowly, it's a very slow process, we're getting a consumer base that's getting a little bit smarter about this shit. And that's going to hurt the AAA game companies even more because they rely on these pre-order sales and stuff. And when people stop pre-ordering them, they don't have the investment capital to finish the game sometimes. So I think we should move on to odds and ends, though. We've been talking for a long time. You got any final thoughts?
No. You know what? I think we'll just get a better idea of what this is going to mean come the quote-unquote E3 time in the summer. Because like you said, we have that developer conference coming up this coming week here, and I'm sure that's what our topic of conversation next week is going to be. But, you know, they're already saying, hey, this, you know, all this stuff isn't going to be there. I think we're going to really see what all of this means for Microsoft when they kind of show us their hand in the summer. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. But we're also going to see it from a couple other companies too. Ubisoft has a lot to prove this year, and if they don't start proving something, they're not going to be a company. And there's been reports coming out that literally people have been trying to buy them, that they've been trying to sell them, and people have been laughing them off the table because of their cost value. So, like, you look at stuff like that, like, these companies are in trouble. They're in more trouble because of overreach. That's what's funny, is that industry makes so much money. How much do you have to spend to really crash yourself? And they're literally crashing themselves, making more money than any other industry on the planet. That's some real human greed shit right there. All right, let's get into odds and ends. We'll be back in a second, everybody.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our last segment. Odds and ends. This is where we collect smaller stories that we don't necessarily use for a talking point. We just want to let you know about them, riff about them, let other people know about them. Neil, I have 4.
I also have 4.
I'm really intrigued because I'm pretty sure we're going to cross off some of each other's today.
Yeah, probably.
I think so. Because, like, 3 of the 4 that I have, like, there's one that I'm like, there's no way Neil's got this. But 3 of the 4, I'm like, I think he might have these exact ones. So, do you mind if I start us off? I'll start with the one that I know you don't have. There's no way you got this one. And that would be, and because it makes me really sad, because it's kind of ruining some plans I had for the channel. But, wrestling fans out there, WWE 2K23, people have been kind of contending, is there going to be one? Are they going back to the annual thing? When's it going to release if it does? Because the game used to come out in September, but the last time 22 came out, it came out in March, but it came out because it was delayed, yada, yada, yada. Well, there has been a leak, okay? The cover art of one of the box arts of one of the different editions for pre-order has John Cena on it, and it has leaked that there will be a 2K23. We actually know there will be a 2K23 of some sort because there is going to be a 2K23 like fan show thing at the Royal Rumble, fan stuff. Like every time they have a big show, they have a backstage like fan thing, you know, and 2K23 will be there. So we will know that we will be getting some information about 2K23 at WWE Royal Rumble 2023, which is a week from this Saturday. However, it is rumored that they are keeping everything the same, that 2K23 will be releasing on March 17th, which will be very in line with what they did last year, with the exception of the fact that last year the game had taken off a year. There was no 2K21 because 2K20 sucked ass. Then 2K22 was announced for September originally. Then it got delayed. It came out March 22nd, which was right before WrestleMania. It appears that they're going to release this year 2K23 on the 17th of March, right before WrestleMania. So, that is the rumor. This is a rumor, though. We know that we're going to hear about it at Royal Rumble, but that's the rumor right now. And it spoils a lot of plans I had. A lot of plans, trust me.
Do you think that it's a good idea to go back to an annual? Okay. I was going to say... I
don't think any sports game in the modern era should do an annualized franchise. I think what they should do is they should release a game, and then for the following 5 years, they should just update the game with patches, new modes, new teams, player changes, that sort of thing. And then every 5 years, they should come out with another new base game to support new mechanics and stuff. That's what I think they should do. I think wrestling's no different. One thing that's tricky about wrestling games, especially WWE, is everybody plays that game for something completely different, and each one of those different things is a completely different game, basically. So, like, you have Universe Mode, which is like you get to control everything, the show, the wrestlers, all the things, and some people play it just for that. Some people play it for the story mode, where you take your created character through a story. Other people play it for the new GM mode that came out last year, which is we have a show based off of, which is where you book against somebody else, like you book actual wrestling shows. And each one of those are basically a separate game inside of the game. All of those things need updates and patches. I think they should just take 2K22. They should update it, patch it every year. It should be a big thing, and they should update the rosters. That being said, they don't agree. So they're releasing a whole other game, which is a real bummer for me. A real bummer, because I made some choices recently with OMGM to prepare for Season 2, and they are just not going to happen, probably, if this comes out on the 17th. So we'll have to see. But It is coming out. I am excited, though, to see what kind of changes they make to GM mode. I don't think it's going to be terrible. I think it'll basically be a carbon copy of 2K22 with updated rosters and some updated modes. That's what I think they're going to do with it. I think that the problem with the annualized franchise is not the one that comes out after the one that's good. It's the one that comes out of the fourth one. It's the fourth or fifth iteration when they can't innovate enough to keep up with the times.
Yeah.
You look at WWE 2Ks in the past, it would be like every third one was great, and then there'd just be a shit show after it because they just
rehashes of
because they can't. It's rehash, and then the first rehash is great because you're not far enough along that you need to completely redesign the game. So you rehash it with some updates, and people are like, "Great, you did some stuff." And then the next one down the road, you're like, why haven't you updated this? And you realize that they're just making the same game over and over again and then trying to jam things in there, and they don't have enough time to fix the bugs. So what do I think? I think in about 4 or 5 years, they're going to be taking another year off and having to completely go back to the drawing board, just like they did with 2K20. But for now, I am excited for 2K23. I know there's a GM mode coming, and I know that they're making a lot of changes to the GM mode that we need. I'm very excited about that. Your turn.
Yeah, so we've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but we are going to expound upon it a little bit more. So there's rumors already that Sony plans on releasing its first hardware revision of the PlayStation 5 in September of this year. The console is apparently going to feature a removable disk drive to give people the option to have digital games or disc-based games. So it's basically going to be the digital version of the PS5 with an attachable disc drive. So you can get the base version and then slap on a disc drive if you so desire. That all said, apparently, according to the rumors as well, it's not going to have any hardware improvements at all. So if you're keeping track at home, this is going to be the second revision of the PlayStation 5 that has no hardware improvements for performance.
Okay. I don't know what to say about this. I mean, I guess I know too much to say about this is more the thing. Like, I could just talk about this for 40 minutes until my eye pops out of my head, my heart explodes, and my family misses me very much. Like, this is the dumbest shit ever. They just at CES announced that the PlayStation 5 shortage was over.
Yeah.
Just announced it, and you now want us to buy a new PlayStation 5. It's shameful. And as far as the disc drive shit is concerned, that's going to be sold separately for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And
will.
They're doing it to make more money, man. That's all it's going to be. That's all it's going to be.
I almost wonder if, because as it stands currently, the digital version and the disc version of the PlayStation 5 only have $100 price difference. What if they have the digital version and the disc itself, the disc drive itself, is $200 extra.
There you go. Yep.
So they can squeeze extra cash out of people to force people more towards the digital end of things. And according to that leak, they have said that disc drive is not going to be compatible with the current digital version of the PS5 either. So it's going to be its own whole ass thing.
Be careful, Neil. Be careful, because if too much of my bleak worldviews rub off on you, I'll have to trade you out for somebody else, because you'll just become like me. It's like a doctor companion sort of situation where, like, if you're not innocent enough to keep me grounded, we're just gonna become crazy people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
So new one. None of that's real. I won't trade you out, man.
Oh, thanks.
I'm 41. I'll be dead before I have to do that. My first one, which one should I start with? I guess I should start with this one, because this one also might be... I'm trying to go for the ones that aren't going to ruin yours first. So, we have another end to a sad tale that we have covered for some time. Marvel's Avengers.
There it is. Yep, there's one of mine.
Sorry, man. I thought maybe that one was one that I didn't get for you. I mean, in all fairness, it's fair that it's me that says this because I was the only one who ever had any sort of faith or interest in this game.
Yeah.
So I guess it's fair to say this. Marvel's Avengers has announced that it is being delisted as of September. It will no longer be available to purchase. However, they have promised that the single-player and multiplayer modes will stay active. They have also said that any spent money that you have will be converted into resources and all the cosmetics will be unlocked, so you no longer have to purchase them. They also, in kind of a nice way, went on and just basically said a lot of nice things about the fans and the people who did stick around with them and ride the journey with them, and they apologized to them for not being able to continue to do it longer. Bittersweet for me because I think Marvel's Avengers has the potential to very easily be somebody else's Anthem, like what Anthem was to me to them, you know, because I said it, Marvel's Avengers at core was a decent game with just some buggy problems and a lack and too much repetition in microtransactions, you know? But at the core, it was not a bad game, and the story, I still think the narrative story of Marvel's Avengers is one of the best. Like, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the way they handled a lot of the voice acting and stuff. But aside from that, it is kind of a failure. I didn't stick with it. They didn't give me enough reason to come back to it or stick with it. You only ever fought like one type of bad guy enemy. They never really fixed that problem. The bad guy encounters, they never really fixed that either. They added a lot of new characters and a lot of new areas, but the problem is new characters and new areas are fun, but if you don't give us anything to do with them, it doesn't really do the thing that you needed to do. So they never got their players back, and honestly, it lasted a little bit longer than I thought it was going to last. But, you know, more.
Hello?
Very noisy for anybody listening. I apologize for that. My microphone.
What just happened? Because I can't see. I can't see you.
A little behind the scenes, everybody. I'm a very active person when I'm doing this podcast. I tend to bang on my desk a lot. I am sure you've heard it, especially if you're an audio listener. Just every once in a while, a rhythmic thumping. That's me banging on my desk. And I banged on my desk too hard, and the entire mic fell forward and muted itself. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. But yeah, so anyway, I think that it's kind of a bummer. I mean, it's a bummer that it couldn't be what anybody wanted it to be. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it really is kind of unfortunate. I mean, even with my own personal reservations with live service games, I remember when this was announced and the excitement around that initial trailer and the excitement around what the game itself was and what they promised and what was shown. And the potential that it had, it just never really got up off the ground. And like you'd said, it did last a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I thought it would have been gone like last year.
It really suffered from an identity crisis, if you ask me. Like, you had this like really intense, heavy cutscene oriented narrative thing. That was just all the action was games as service. And like, I love games as service. I like narrative stuff too, but there are certain, like, you can do narrative with games as service. You can do games as service in a narrative, but this never seemed to gel. It was like it was two different games fighting with each other the entire time. And I think that comes down to poor kind of overall, like, but personally I think it was mismanaged. I think somewhere along the development of this game, somebody was like, hey, we need a Destiny, and that's going to be our Destiny. And then all of the people who were making it were like, how do we make this into a looter thing, you know? And I think that's what happened. That being said, both of them Like, it ended up being both of them were kind of subpar, because of it.
Right.
Okay, it's your turn. See if you can steal one of mine.
Yeah, let me see here. Well, I don't know. It's entirely possible.
It's possible. Could be on your list. Got a lot of.
So, Skull and Bones is being automatically refunded on the PlayStation Store. Anybody who pre-ordered it is getting their money back. They didn't submit any for a refund or anything. They're just automatically refunding everybody, and is no longer available pre-order there. You know what I think it is? I think they're seeing a Cyberpunk situation again, and they want to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they very well could be.
Because that was the whole thing when Cyberpunk came out. It was so bad that they straight up and down said, nope, nobody's buying it on the platform until they fix it. Yep. They didn't want to be associated with it. And I feel like this time they see the writing on the wall and they're trying to get ahead of it.
It very well could be that. I'm not arguing that at all. I don't know the meaning behind that personally. Right. I will say I think Skull and Bones is just in a weird spot, and I'm still excited for the game. I still want to play it. May or may not have already played it, and may or may not have already really loved that chunk that I played. That being said, I think they're in a spot where, like I said, at some point you got to release the game. Like we talked about this last year. At some point you got to release the game and give it up to the consumers to decide whether they like it or not. And whoever's going to like that game is going to like that game when you release it at this point. Yeah. And whoever's going to hate that game is going to hate it when you release it. And it doesn't matter what you do to it anymore to change that. Like, it's just not. You have to just release it and try and go from there and try and work with the reaction that you get. Mm-hmm. That being said, they seem to be way too scared to put it out, and that makes me nervous. I watched that deck, the deck.
On deck, yeah.
And it was real weird, considering that they had delayed it. Mm-hmm. It was all about the narrative of the game. And basically, a lot of people have said, like, there's not enough narrative to it. Especially people who may or may not have been in a beta test. I think this was kind of a reaction to that. Kind of saying, oh, there's a narrative there. We just didn't show you it in that because we weren't testing for that sort of thing. So it's all about, like, story stuff that nobody's seen before, which is cool. I'm down with story stuff. I think that's cool. I think there's definitely an opening for some story stuff here. I think it's really weird, though, that you delayed the game, did not give us a release window, and then your first whatever on it the day after is about the story of the game. It's not going to help anything at that point,
Right. So and that was the weirdest move about that whole situation.
It's very weird.
Is the fact that they announced the delay and, by the way, tomorrow watch the stream and you'll see stuff. Like, it was. I don't understand why they decided.
Well, and they didn't do any chat with it or anything like that for their stream. And I kind of feel like that they had to tell those guys that, and they were like, "Oh, we're not doing chat. like not gonna do that shit." It was a very weird half hour, I guess is the best way to say it. Again, it still all looks good to me, but I think that you're in a position, much like Cyberpunk, much like Halo Infinite, where at this point, can you deliver on what people are expecting? And I don't think you can. I will give them this. They haven't promised anything that I haven't seen. You know what I mean? Like, they haven't said that they're going to give you anything other than what they may or may not have given to somebody who may or may not have played in a closed beta test who shouldn't talk about it. But I haven't gotten sued yet, I guess. But still, there is a level of people want a certain thing that it's not going to be there. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Still staying away from what you might have. And also segueing off of 2 games as service odds and ends, there was another leak. A very interesting leak about a game coming out called Suicide Squad. Because suddenly, I'm actually more interested in this game. Because it looks like it's a games as service.
Oh, yeah. The writing has been on the wall for that for a while.
No, it hasn't. You're out of your mind. Don't pretend. Don't pretend in the aftermath like you're some fucking Nostradamus. There has been no evidence that was a games of service. There's been no gameplay of it. They haven't shown any gameplay at all.
They showed a little bit of gameplay.
When did they show gameplay?
Anything nowadays.
Show gameplay of Suicide Squad. It's just been trailers, dude.
If any game that shows us a team of 4 people of any stripe that looks like they can be subdivided into, like, there's a big beefy person and a small nimble person, straight up and down is gonna be a live service.
Oh my god. You're full of shit.
Full of shit. I don't know if this is
pretending to be smarter. What are you doing? I don't know if
this is just I'm sure I had mentioned that it was going to be a live service.
I have never heard you say anything.
I'm sure
not once.
100%.
And I'm Pepperidge Farms, motherfucker.
And I'm Pepperidge Farms.
Still, the leak shows a screenshot of the menu. At the top, there is a store. There is a battle pass tab, and then it's got the 4 characters and like a replay chapter or whatever, and then equipments and loadouts and stuff. So it looks like Suicide Squad's going to be a games of service, which I am nervous that this leak comes out right after Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah.
Plus, isn't Rocksteady making this game?
Well, yeah.
And they just did
the one.
Gotham Knights, which is a fucking nightmare. So, like...
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's the big thing. The fact that Rocksteady, like, I feel like everybody was looking at Gotham Knights to see how that was going to turn out for Suicide Squad. And I think we all had this expectation that Gotham Knights was actually going to be okay because it was like, it's basically an Arkham game.
Yeah. And
the Arkham games have done very well.
Yeah.
So along comes, Gotham Knights, and it is the entire complete opposite of an Arkham game, effectively. It's a crude implementation of what they made in the first place, that sort of combat system. So now, like you mentioned, Rocksteady is the one that did Gotham Knights, and now we're looking at Suicide Squad.
Yep.
We're already, I'm sure everybody already is like, well, we're just going to have a rehash of it, because I don't know as if they necessarily are going to either A, have learned anything from their previous implementation of the live service stuff, because it's their first time with the live servicey sort of stuff.
Right.
Or B, they're so far along in development at this point, they can't really course correct without another big delay.
I mean, again, everybody's got to stop course correcting too. I think that's a huge problem with the AAA markets now, is that you like, look, whether or not people are going to like your game, you can't spend 4 years on it and then decide to make it something else. It just can't happen. Like don't try and work all the bugs out, but like you can't keep course correcting games, because you keep doing that, you don't release them, you don't make any money off of them.
Right.
So like at this point, like it's a games of service. Just put it out. People get mad. They get mad. You go to the drawing board. Like there's nothing else you could do. But yeah, it looks like because of the leak, it's going to be a games of service.
Well, I'm going to go into my last one here.
Sure. Might be my last one, too. We'll have to see.
We'll see, yeah. The Last of Us.
It's not my last one. Sweet.
Okay. The Last of Us show is now out on HBO. Have you watched it?
I'm not going to watch it. It doesn't interest me.
You're not going to watch it?
Those games don't do anything for me at all, so I'm not interested in doing shit for them.
Definitely, it's a good standalone thing.
I mean, that's great. I'm not going to knock anybody who watches it. I mean, I know that those games are popular for a reason, and that's totally fine. For me, it's just I've never been interested or gotten into Last of Us, so it just won't. Plus, I'm definitely not going to give up time watching Vox Machina, which season 2 just came out on Friday, to watch that. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
I need to watch that at some point.
You ever watched the first season?
No,
you gotta watch that first season. I've never watched Critical Role, and I love that fucking show.
Yeah,
that and Willow. I got the season finale to finish.
Willow. I never saw the original movie, so the series.
Damn it, Neil! Every fucking time. I love that you had to disclaimer it on Dope Nerds.
I'm actually gonna make you a whole lot more upset. Actually, we'll just dive right into this. We'll segue off of my last odds. I tried to watch Rocky for the first time the other day.
All right.
I shut it off halfway through.
Why? What possible reason could you have for not enjoying it? Oh my God.
I couldn't do it. I literally just could not do it.
You couldn't do one of the greatest films of all time?
It was just people yelling, angry New Yorkers yelling at each other for no goddamn reason. I almost thought it was like a bad comedy movie at some point.
Well, that's the thing. Most of them kind of are. Here's the thing. This is tough because I'm going to say something that the internet isn't going to like or agree with me on, but the first Rocky is one of the weakest ones.
I have been told that.
You have to watch that to get to the other ones, but the other ones are way better. In my opinion, Rocky 1 sets up Rocky 2. Rocky 2 is good. And then Rocky 3 is one of my favorites of all time. Rocky 4 is America's favorite. Rocky 6... Which one's Rocky 6? No, Rocky 5. Rocky 5 sucks. But Rocky Balboa is good, and then Creed's good. But if I were you, I'd go back to it and try and get through it. At least to the fight.
Just at least push through it just for the second movie.
Yeah. It's one of those where it's like Arrested Development. The first season was okay, but the second season is fucking amazing. It's one of those things that kind of builds off the first one, so you kind of have to watch the first one, but once you get into that second one, you're like, okay, now I'm feeling this. I don't know, the first one I watched because I was forced to watch it by my parents, you know what I mean, back in the day, and it was like, that's alright. And it's got some good moments, the whole condom thing. Did you get to that part?
No, I shut it off. I shut it off after the ice skating.
His one skeezy friend, the guy that used to have him break fingers or whatever. Okay. It's like he's talking to Rock. Maybe this was in 2. I don't know, but he's talking to Rock and he's like, Rocky, man, you got to diversify. Have you ever thought about condominiums? And Rocky looks at him and goes, condominiums? I don't know. I don't use them. Jesus. It's just so good. Look, if I were you, I would try and muscle through the first one and then watch the second one. And then if you're not into it by the end of the second one, walk away from the series. But that's a lot to ask from somebody. So I kind of get it if you're not gonna.
I have some surprise time off coming up here at the beginning of February.
Willow, you will like, hands down. Willow, I will say this right now. You as a person will like Willow, hands down.
I had never even heard of Willow until the Disney Plus series. And then I did some quick research on it, and I was like, oh, shit, this definitely seems like a thing that I would enjoy. It's definitely on my, at this point, to watch this.
I want to start a charity so that in public schools, that we could just have one class that's just obscure old movies that you should know about. And I just have people teach the class, just hey, this is Big Trouble in Little China. This is a cult movie from Kurt Russell. It's a seminal work, stuff like that, like just weird 80s and 90s movies that you just gotta know about at some point. Here's Top Gun. This is where Tom Cruise came out.
Zero of Tom Cruise. But yeah,
playing with the boys. Okay.
Literally getting back to the whole Last of Us thing. The whole reason we even started talking about this. I was pissed away like 5 minutes on this.
Yeah, that's probably more than 5 minutes.
That's probably more than 5 minutes. Yeah, but the Last of Us show, it does what I have always wanted an adaptation to do.
Okay.
It stays true to the original source and the beats of the story, but expands on the parts that it needs to expand on, but keeps everything the same.
Okay.
Granted, only the first episode. Well, I guess technically now, as we are recording this, the second episode is out. So I'll have to watch that at some point. But very good show. You don't have to have played the game to know what's going on. They're very good with explaining stuff. In fact, there's like the opening 10 minutes of it really sets up the whole thing and primes you for what you need to know going into it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, good show, highly recommended and highly reviewed. So granted, it's the only
a lot of people like it. A lot of people like it. I think personally, here's the thing, everybody out there. I have a finite amount of TV that I can watch by myself, unimpeded by 6-year-old eyes or my wife going, I don't want to watch this. So, and I also am a wrestling fan, and anybody who is a wrestling fan knows that there is an ungodly amount of wrestling content to watch in a week, even if you're just watching one league, and I follow all 3. So, other than that, I have like 1, maybe 2 shows that I can fit in here and there. So, like, unless it's something that's like, I have to watch that, it's not going to be something that I watch. And there's nothing about Last of Us that screams that to me. To take the place of Vox Machina, Willow, or Doctor Who, like, it's just not gonna happen. So that's just how it works for me. But everybody out there, highly reviewed by Neil, so check it out. I'll go into my last one.
All right.
You already mentioned a little bit of it. That's why I thought you kind of had it.
I avoided this one because I thought it was because I think it happened like a week and a half ago, but go on ahead.
It didn't. It happened. Well, the comment happened a week and a half ago, but the response to it happened this week. Yves Guillermo basically said to his employees that it's their fault that the restructuring was happening, that the canceling was happening. That, like, if they didn't like what was happening, that they should work harder and make better things.
Because it's not the leader's fault.
Right. It's not the leader's fault. It can't be the guy who runs the company's fault that the company doesn't run good. It's obviously the people who he's telling what to do. They're just not doing the right thing. He actually, this week, had a Q&A, basically, company-wide stream to basically apologize for that. And to all of his employees, that he shouldn't have said that. And that was probably a little insensitive. Just a little.
Well, whatever. I have no sympathy for that man.
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
I never really had much to begin with. He especially after that, the ball is in your court.
Yeah,
was the phrase
that's the phrase. You're right.
So casually too, just like, hey man, I've done what I can. Now it's up to you guys to do your part. What precisely have you fucking done other than run everything into the ground? I mean, that whole idea of, I get it, like, if you are at a small company and you have 1, maybe 2 bad actors on a staff of a whole of like 20 people, you can't really point the finger at the management unless those individuals have, been there for years and years and years and years, and it's been like greatly documented that they're an issue. When an entire company is not doing great, you can't say, well, it's my employees, they're just not doing the good things. They no make good game, no make money. Me not know what happened, not my fault. It's got to be them.
You got, what, 6, 7 full studios under your control, and you're saying that, like, all of them, all of them
fault.
did it
Yeah.
wrong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
There is a problem. There's another problem that's rampant in gaming and probably everywhere. Really, is about finger pointing. Like everybody wants to be like, "Oh, it's their fault." Hey, man, let's take some responsibility for what we did or did not do.
But the second shit goes great, I will fucking bet you.
Yeah.
Those teams, let's say those teams put their nose to the grindstone.
Mm-hmm.
2 years from now, it's a fucking miracle. Ubisoft pulls it out of their ass. Everything Beyond Good and Evil 2 is real, like all sort of shit. And he'll be the first one to say, without the great leadership here at Ubisoft, none of this would have been possible. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, like if I didn't tell everybody they sucked, they wouldn't have been better. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's exactly how they think, and it's kind of despicable on all fronts. I think that I don't have any sympathy for Eves. I don't have any sympathy for Ubisoft. I don't want Ubisoft to close, but I don't have any sympathy for them. And they were a company that I loved for a very long time, and they didn't do a whole lot wrong for a long time either. And then all of a sudden, the last like 2 years, it's been
all the
things behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. So yeah, that was my last one.
Hooray!
All right, we're gonna be right back with the plugs, guys.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the show and the shameless self-promotion that comes with it. So, Neil, you got anything special you want to plug? And I know you do.
I do. I have lots of pluggy plugs.
Pluggy plugs.
So, as we already mentioned, it was like at the end of November that I initially had teased about it. We were invited to go on to the Dope Nerds podcast. Now, timing was weird, so only I was able to get on there, but it was a great show. We just riffed. They are super chill guys. It's like a natural conversation whenever we were talking on that podcast. It was fantastic. So sidebar completely, go ahead and check them out wherever you can find podcasts. They're on YouTube as well. The Dope Nerds, and that is nerds with a Z at the end. You can find them anywhere that podcasts are distributed. They use Anchor, same as us. But sidebar, on the sidebar, we are going to try to set something up here soon so that they can guest. It's only right to return the favor, have them on here. And I think it'll be the most people that we've had on a podcast ever.
I am cringing at making all our faces appear on the podcast already. Trust me.
So there is that. There is also a little something else. If you are listening to this, it will be tomorrow. If you are watching this, it will be tonight, when the episode comes out. We are planning on doing a stream. By the way, checked. We should be okay, because I know you gave me some homework to make sure that we'd be able to do it. We're going to probably do You Suck at Parking. Change things up with a stream with my wife Kayla, myself, and Zach. Lord knows I will get all of the verbal abuse and all of the land, so I will be mentally preparing myself for that for the next few days.
I don't know how it's gonna go, because I think that, like, I would say a good 2/3 of me and Kayla's material is just the subject matter of Halo in itself. Like the grunts, the Dougs, the like, and making fun of a thing that you love so much that it makes you mad, I think is like 2/3 of our material. So I'm very nervous about a new game.
Here's what I think is going to happen.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, I'm going to go into this completely blind.
Okay.
I will not have played this game.
Okay.
I want to be fresh as possible with this.
Okay.
And if this game is how it looks to me, it's going to be you guys getting pissed and yelling at me.
Because that's possible.
We played, I don't think we actually recorded it for anything, but we played a little bit of the, what was it?
Single player?
No. It was Outlands, Oddlands. I forget. Badlands. That's what it was.
Oh, I fucking hate that game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I just take off like a fucking idiot and kill everybody on the screen.
That's not what this is. That's not what this is.
It's not what
We're
it
actually
is, but...
versing each other. What it is like you can't go backwards, like period. But you have to end up in a parking spot. And then you have to check off the parking spots faster than the other people check off the parking spots. And then there's all these obstacles around the course and whatever. But you cannot reverse in any way, shape, or form. So, like, that's the game. You have to, like, park, basically, in weird situations. Because I played it a little bit just to see what it was.
I cannot wait for this.
I think it'll be fun. Like I said, I think I'm still kind of worried because I would say 2/3 of me and Kayla's material is making fun of Halo, which is a thing you love, and then making fun of the things that you say, even though you're carrying us the entire time, which is what makes it so funny. So I'm very nervous about this one. Very nervous, but I'm sure it's going to be a blast. He is right, ladies and gentlemen. That is coming out on the 25th of this Wednesday. We're going to be doing it at 9:30 for who knows how long.
An undetermined amount of time.
Not too long. Probably like an
It's
hour
not going to
and a
be
half.
too long. Yeah.
We all got bedtimes now. We all got bedtimes now.
Especially now, yeah.
Especially on a Wednesday. I got to be up at 6:20 on Thursdays now. So, but yeah, we're going to be doing that. That'll be a lot of fun. We're also starting to record some more UHW, so keep your eye out for that. I do also want to plug, as it continues to come closer, I'm going to be doing... We're trying to do a little bit more TTRPG stuff on the channel. I like TTRPG stuff. It still fits under the umbrella of gaming, so we're definitely setting some things up right now. I obviously have a company that makes TTRPGs. We're working on our second game. I'm trying to get together a group to stream for that, which will be fun. But I am also streaming with Wizard's Respite, who is a very wonderful TTRPG guy. You can check him out at wizardsrespite.com. He does reviews and stuff. We are going to do a stream of a 2-player journaling game. I don't know how this is going to work. It should be really interesting. But if you ever heard me narrate The Last Tea Shop, that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do the 2-player version of it on a stream on February 2nd, Thursday night, February 2nd at 9:30. Really excited about that. Really nervous about that. We'll have to see how it goes. I got my copy of Last Tea Shop here. I got to read through it, maybe play one by myself to know what I'm doing. But yeah, other than that, streaming Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m., State of Decay Forever Communities, still rocking that. We've got Amateur Hour. We're in River City Girls 2, a game that I have a huge heart on for. And not because it's all ladies, but because of the brawler. And then Hard Rock Horror every Friday at 11 a.m. And then other than that, we got a lot of stuff out now. OMGM, Prelude to Divorce. I'm still trying to find something good to fucking do a show with Neil with. So we'll figure it out. But other than that, you guys can check out everything we have to offer. You can also reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord, links in the description below. Influence us in all of our shows from there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as long as you keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. See you guys next time. Your problem, like that's the problem I have with all AAA games. It's all style over substance nowadays.
And Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah.
I'm stupid early. Stupid
okay.
early.
Yeah.
I literally have just gone to, outside of the first like tutorial cyberspace thing.
Okay.
I just went to the second one, and that's literally where I stopped.
Okay. All right. So you haven't gotten far.
Like maybe a half hour into it.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but I feel like the fact that Sonic doesn't have the normal, like in the 3D Sonic games, anytime you jump, you can do a homing attack just immediately. Even though there's nothing to home onto, you still do that like dash shot thing, you know?
Yeah, you can't do that in this.
You can't do that in this. And that fucks with me hard.
You do have a burst forward, but you have to press the speed burst thing.
Exactly, and it feels so wrong doing it that way. I have to stop and think about my actions, which is not conducive to a Sonic game.
You're getting a weird face right now. Like, if this is your problem with it, it's pretty ridiculous, man. I was like, oh, I have to do that? Cool. And then that was it. Like, that was it's one button difference, man.
I'm sure I'll get used to it, but I do have to say, the pop-in, if your pop-in's rough, at least on the PS5 version.
I didn't notice a problem with it at all on Switch on handheld. Like, I didn't have any issue. I mean, I definitely noticed the pop-in, but like, it never caused issue with my gameplay.
Yeah, no, it's not been anything that ruins the game for sure. I'll tell you that for sure. It's not like you hit a spring and you're just like, looks like you're about to land on nothing, and then surprise, there's a platform.
Right.
So it's not like
which is how IGN kind of made it sound.
Yeah.
In the review was that like that, and for me, it's like you could definitely see it. Like, without a doubt, I'm like, it's definitely there, but like, it never keeps me from like you said, a platform never appears in front of me. You know, bad guys never appear in front of me. You know,
the one thing that I do think is really weird and off-putting is, did they change Sonic's voice actor?
I have no idea. Maybe
because it sounds like
no, they did. They definitely did, because the other guy quit. Remember?
Okay, yeah, because. Yeah. It's funny, like, that opening scene when he's standing on top of the plane. He's like, "Hey, Tails, let's land over here on this." I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, who are you?
It's not that bad. You're making it sound like he's Batman. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. Fear me.
It's just like, I'm used to like
I am the speed.
And it's like, now it's just like, I am the speed, I am the rings.
It's not even close to that bad, everybody. It's not even close to that bad. If this makes it in, he just sounds like a normal dude. That's it.
But yeah, like I said, stupid early on.
You hyperbole speaker, you.